We want to open our hearts right now, and wow, life is like this big menu of choices we have, and we get to wake up every day and decide what we want to choose and who we want to be and how we want to approach the day no matter what's going on. I love what Gretchen was singing about today. We need to choose love more often. You know, it's like this big menu, I said, with all these choices, and I would say that God's greatest gift, or at least one of the greatest gifts to us, is the gift of choice. Because we can always, no matter what's going on in our life, we can always choose something different. We can always choose better. Maya Angelou said, do your best until you know better. And then do better. And that's what our choices help us do. When we know something more, when we're stretched a little bit, and the light gets a little brighter, we can make a new choice, something more. Behind every action we take, there is a thought. Ralph Waldo Emerson told us that, and so did all the philosophers and historians, everything else. There's a thought. Thoughts are powerful. Behind every action is a thought, and behind every thought is a belief. We know, and the main tenet we teach is God is all there is, and we are all the vessels, the vehicles of God's expression. The only thing I believe that can separate us from being fully expressed as emanations of spirit is the belief that we're separated. It's the thought that we're different, that we're not the same. Look, thousands of years ago, this is nothing new. In the Bible, it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Because what you'll learn is that God's will for us is good and perfect. It's the will for us. However, we don't always believe that, and we don't live that. We're not open because God can only do for us what it can do through us, our acceptance. The problem is, God doesn't argue with us. If we want to refuse its goodness, if we want to refuse the abundance of creativity and love and joy and inspiration, we can, and God doesn't argue. But when we feel and recognize and know the power of our choices, we can make a difference. One of the most meaningful books of the 20th century. I remember reading it in school and reading it in spiritual education, and it is such a meaningful book of the 20th century, just so moving and had such a message for everyone, was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a renowned, distinguished psychoanalyst, and he, along with his wife and his family, were sent to a Nazi concentration camp. They were separated. And he shared the experience of seeing basic human dignity stripped from people and how so many fell into deep despair and they died. But Viktor Frankl chose differently. Every day as he was walking to his work site, he'd be thinking of the book he had been composing, and he would edit the chapters in his mind that he'd already written, and he would write new chapters in his mind. And he would think about his wife and how much he loved her and how much she loved him. And he would fantasize about what new things would happen when he got out. He chose to focus on two things. And this is what we all should focus on for each and every one of us, always, is that his life has meaning, as ours does. Each and every person here is here for a reason, for a purpose, and that we are loved, because no matter what, we are loved. Now, Viktor Frankl survived, of course, miraculously. God's gift miraculously, and his effort, combination, who knows the whole reason, but he got to share the power of making choices and what saved his being in a situation that was so terrible. Ernest Holmes the first page of his 600 and some page textbook, he talks about free will, because he too believes that that is a basic human gift, a gift from God that we should all share. And I just want to read a bit of this, because every time I read Ernest Holmes' words, I sink deeper into his beautiful philosophy and his intelligence. To suppose that creative intelligence of the universe would create man in bondage and keep him there would be to dishonor the creative power that we call God. Suppose that God would make individuals, and without leaving them to discover their true selves, would be impossible. And this is the individuality must be spontaneous. It must be spontaneous. It can never be automatic. The seed of freedom must be planted in the innermost being of everyone. It's right there in us, the seed of freedom to make our choices. But, like the prodigal son, we must discover it for ourselves. And he goes on to say, well, then why? Why are we weak, poor, and afraid when we know instinctively, everyone knows there's freedom in us, that we are free to choose? Why then do we express ourselves in being poor and weak and afraid and filled with fear? It's because we have in our mind, and I want you to think about in your own mind right now, we have thoughts in our own mind and feelings in our heart and beliefs that deny us the truth that we live in a harmonious and spiritual universe right now. Not something we have to wait for or die to get to. We live in a harmonious and spiritual universe right now. But we have thoughts and feelings that deny that. And of course, if our thoughts and feelings deny that, then our actions are going to be actions that aren't in alignment with harmony and spirituality and love and goodness. And we have to make adjustments. There's two ways. First of all, we want to live. We can't. Have you ever been in a restaurant and you can't decide what you want on the menu? I do that all the time. I don't know what I really want, because what does it take to know what you want? You have to tap in and see what your body wants, what's good for you at that moment. You need to have a clear mind. The same with making choices in life. We have to clear our minds. You know, the voice of God is very meditative. We call it the still small voice within. It's introspective and meditative. And we oftentimes, those thoughts of chaos and denial and confusion that we have, we need to clear our mind so we can approach life and make the choices that lead us on the path. Now, it may take a while, but on that path of goodness that leads us to the things we've talked about: compassion, love, joy, kindness, purpose, meaning, understanding that we are loved no matter what. And that was, I believe that was in the song that Elliot sang this morning. You love me no matter what. And that's, we are loved no matter what. Remember, God doesn't argue with us. We are loved no matter what. So I'm just going to invite us to really be conscious of clearing our minds and making room for God. So on that menu of choices as we begin the day, we can choose to step forward in alignment with what we really want. I read a quote, and I can't remember who it was by, about the importance of things are things we focus on, what we choose to really, I can't remember the word that it was there, emphasize, what we really emphasize in our life. And we can emphasize things that make us miserable or make us happy. It takes the same amount of work if we're going to be happy or we can be miserable. I had to think this week, because these are crazy times, and it's been really hot. So focusing on all that's good and happy and true is a challenge sometimes. But even more than times like this, times of great, great loss, which people in life are experiencing now in many ways. Times of great loss give us opportunities to make even bigger choices. This Tuesday was the 28th anniversary of our daughter Tara's passing. And Kirk and I always sit down on that day and we talk about, wow, what are the choices that led us here? How did we get where we are? Because we realize that the choices we made have given us this amazing family called InSpirit. And when we thought about it, loss, which we can say right now, we're having loss of some of our freedom, there's many different losses that are experienced in different pains. We have a chance and an opportunity to see a bigger perspective. There has to be more than there's something bigger at work, right? There's something bigger going on here. We have to know that. Our faith knows that. There's something for us to know, to learn, to grow, whatever it is. So there's always about perspective. How can we open that menu of life to something bigger, because something more absolutely is at work. And also, there's never a time that there's not a lot to be grateful for. So at times when we're really hurting, it's times to think, what are we really grateful for? It's a time when we can clear our mind and our values grow and change. We can start looking at bigger things to be thankful for, more things, smaller things to be thankful for, things to be thankful for everywhere. We can take time to do that. And then the third thing I thought about is, boy, at times of great loss, it takes great courage. Sometimes that courage is to do something new. Sometimes that courage is just to get out of bed in the morning and put your foot on the floor and put one foot in front of the other. But every moment, we may think at times there are no choices. I mean, when we hear the word free will, it challenges our thought of, no, I'm trapped. I don't have any choices. This is fate, or things are beyond my control. We're always making choices, even when we don't make a choice or think we're making a choice. We're choosing. Life is all about the choices we make to make things better. As Ernest said in the beginning of his book, the story of the parable of the prodigal son, Ernest Holmes says, is one of the best spiritual lessons in religious education. And Jesus loved to talk in parables because parable stories that are so layered meet people where you are. They meet you where you are. In this story, Jesus started out when he was telling his listeners that the Father, which is the God, the universal intelligence, the Father has two sons. And that right there tells us, as children of God, we are given choices. We can make choices in life. And again, remember, God doesn't argue or complain, but the Father is always there, because the story tells about a loving Father that after the younger son took his inheritance, squandered it all, lived with the pigs, and was divinely guided back to his father's house, the father was there with open arms. But the older son stayed at home out of a stern sense of duty. It wasn't out of a loving kindness to help his dad. He was there to do the righteous thing. So he was doing the right thing for the wrong reason. But his father loved him all the time. And that story is such a beautiful story to remind us, no matter where we are on this journey of awakening and spiritual growth and advancement, that we can make the choices. When we turn to Spirit, Spirit welcomes us and turns to us and opens us. We've got to create our mind that's available to make room for Spirit all the time. It's a reciprocal action that's happening. A reciprocal action right now. So I want you to think in this moment, if we just clear our mind and know that true guidance either comes, by that we clear our minds and we're inspired and the sparks go on, or we have a hard knock in life and we have to make a better choice. Let's choose better now. Where right now, just in this moment, could you make a better choice? Just shift an old belief that you're hanging on to that Mary talked about, or shift something in your mind that could lead you to a greater possibility, a bigger understanding, knowing there's something more at work right now. Where could you do that? Just start little bits and make a choice for something better. Jane Goodall, one of the gorillas in the mist, beautiful woman who dedicated her life to studying the gorillas and understanding the way life and animals work. She said, we can use this beautiful gift of life. We can use it to make the world a better place. Or we don't have to bother. It's up to us. I want to bother. I want to bother. I want us all to bother so we can get together and choose to make the choices that lead us to something greater. So if we look today and just imagine that we have this big menu of life with all the feelings and the thoughts and the choices and where they might lead us, think of the ones that are going to fill you up the best. Because when you're taking care of your body, which we've all gotten more aware of with the virus going on and the situation, to take care of our physical body, we have to be conscious of what we put in our body, what we're eating. Are we healthy? Are we taking vitamins? We have to put in the healthy things in our body. We have to keep our bodies moving. We got to get some exercise, minimal or not. We got to keep ourselves moving in order to be healthy. But to be mentally and emotionally and spiritually healthy, we have to do the same thing with our mind. We have to make the choices in our mind that are going to keep us uplifted and keep us healthy. So on today's menu of life, I'm going to choose love. How about you? Send some love to someone right now. I'm going to choose that this morning. I'm going to choose kindness. When I think of all the kindness that was sent to that little boy, Jordan, that's what we're made of. We're made of love and kindness. And I'm going to choose joy because I know that's contagious. So just here in this moment, I want you to send all the sparkles of your mind, your heart, your goodness. I want you to send it out to this world because together we make this world a better, a happier, a more joyful place. Doesn't matter if we think the same, talk the same, act the same, look the same. We can share that same love, that same kindness, that same goodness, that same smile that everyone understands. Please know, as I know for each of you, that your life matters. Your life matters. And that you are loved. God bless you. And so it is.